Hi everyone, I'm Rochelle Rizzi with Vrai Nord, and today I'm here with Jodi Brandstetter, who's the Chief Talent Strategist and owner of Lean Effective Talent Strategies. She's also the author of Hire by Design, and I'm excited to bring her here today because I think she has a lot of relatable and easily applied tools and tips for entrepreneurs. Hi, Jodi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, Jodi? What made you start your own business? And then I, of course, want to touch on the book because it's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. So my background has been in talent acquisition and human resources. I've been in that field since I graduated college, which was 20 years ago. And I started within staffing, went to corporate, and in 2018, I made the leap into becoming an entrepreneur. And there was really a couple reasons why. One, I think I've always had the entrepreneur spirit. I've had side jobs. I've started small event planning businesses when I was in my 20s. So it was something I've always kind of grabbed onto. But at the time, this was definitely a family decision for me. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. I had an amazing team of 9 people who I loved dearly. I called them my grandchildren because I got to send them home at night, but I really enjoyed my job. The only thing I didn't enjoy was the stress and the travel that came with it. And having a beautiful little girl who's now 5, the time she was 3, I realized that I really wanted to be home more with her. I wanted to stay in Cincinnati. I didn't want to be going to New York and Texas and Wisconsin. So I really made that decision that it would be the best for me and my family if I started my own consulting business, and it would be best if I took my tools that I've learned in the past 20 years and helped small to mid-sized businesses to help them create better hiring strategies so that they have the same opportunity as some of these Fortune 500 companies that might have a larger budget, and find ways for them to actually have a similar experience for their candidates, but in a way that's going to make sense for them.
Very nice. And so where are you now? What's going on? What's the new developments?
So I started doing a lot of staff augmentation, helping recruit for companies, which I loved because it gave me that ability to learn about other industries that I've never tapped into. But I do not want to fish for my clients. I want to teach them to fish. That's like my huge thing I want to do. I want them to have that capability of doing this themselves. So in 2020, I had made the decision that I was going to no longer accept any clients who wanted me to recruit for them, and that I was only going to accept clients who wanted me to help them create the processes and the strategies so that they can recruit for themselves. And when I was doing this and making this decision, I found design thinking, which is my favorite methodology, and I truly believe the best methodology for hiring. And I started taking courses and learning and exploring, and I started adding it to my consulting business. And when I started adding it to my consulting business, I realized this is a great methodology for hiring, but it's a really good methodology that I should be using with manufacturing, engineering, and technology companies. So I was really able to then focus my client persona, I guess you can say, on the industries I wanted to serve, and it really kind of helped me kind of open up and really visualize what I want to do moving forward. So that's what I've been doing is really helping small to mid-sized companies here in the tri-state area, so Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky, and really focus on helping them see how hiring design can really impact the way that they think about their processes and how they implement their processes. And then just a side note, because I know like every entrepreneur, we have so many different projects or babies that we have, right? I also have talent acquisition evolution, which is how I serve the talent acquisition community here. And we provide conferences and workshops, and that, is a way for, hopefully to help build a really strong TA force to help businesses here in Cincinnati so that the companies can thrive and our city can thrive.
I love that. And you know what is really important to note is that you made a very concerted effort in that change. And talk about, was it kind of like a moment of gulp, like I just made this promise to myself and am I shooting myself in the foot by staying focused? Or did you notice that once you knew what to say yes and no to and you stayed true to that it was easier? What challenges did you see and what benefits did you see from that?
The challenges that I saw were that I can come up with tons of ideas and I'm constantly like, oh, this is a great one. Oh, this is a great one. And so that's really hard for me to stay focused when I'm looking at what services I want to provide. But once I really understood my client and who I should be working with, it was that whole mentality of, when you want to buy a red car and then all you see is red cars. All of a sudden, my focus was on engineering, manufacturing, and technology, and that was all that was coming to me. Those were the opportunities I was seeing, and literally once I made that mind shift, I started getting more clients, which was amazing. And they're the clients I want to have versus clients that, I think every entrepreneur, we sometimes just want to make money and just to prove ourselves. So it wasn't like I was just taking any project. I was finally finding the right projects for me. And so that really benefited me to have that focus. I think I was super scared that if I did focus on just a certain group of companies, that I wouldn't be able to have a thriving consulting business. But now I see I can, and it's really exciting.
That is exciting, and congratulations. I think it takes, it takes a little guts, but it takes planning and trusting yourself as a human being, as an entrepreneur, that when you're making those giant pivots and you're trying to have that really focused energy on where you want to go, first of all, you have to have a vision for that, and then you design that pathway. So you're definitely practicing what you preach. And I'm wondering too, what you're hearing from other entrepreneurs or small businesses when they come to you and say, maybe they're not challenged right now, but they're looking to get ahead of the game because they have time right now during COVID to think. I mean, a lot of small businesses are struggling. I know, especially in the hospitality industry, they're really struggling and looking to close doors and things like that, and maybe even having to reinvent themselves. What kind of advice would you give those small business owners who have time right now, who are not struggling, to get ahead of the game?
For small business owners who are not struggling right now, this is a great time to rediscover themselves and their business, and then to plan ahead and start to create that strategy that they want to see for their organization in 3 to 5 years. Taking the time to look back at 2020 and look at the areas that were a concern, or do they have issues with retaining employees, or are they now having a hard time finding employees? So this would be a great time to take a step back and look at what I call the candidate journey and the hiring blueprint for their organization, so they can really find the right person. Because again, it's that red car mentality. Just like when you're looking for the perfect client or the ideal client, you should be doing the same thing for your candidates. But you have to understand that person and see that journey so that okay, this is when I should be reaching out to them, or this is how I should be reaching out to them. Or this is how I should, put together a career site, or to do an application. So this would be a great time to kind of build out your map, and then the blueprint is kind of like a service blueprint, if anyone's familiar with that, which it literally lies out. Okay, here's kind of the journey map. Here's what the candidate's feeling, their actions, and then you go to, okay, who is the front forward person who is providing the touch points or working with that candidate? Who are the people in the backstage who are helping with the process, but the candidates do not see them? What are they doing? And then who's supporting? What technology, what tools, what vendors? And then if you can build that out and see that whole view, it's like that 360 view of your hiring process, you can then look at, are there any hurdles that a candidate has to go through? Are there any bottlenecks? Is there anything that we can improve? And when you're not hiring, 50 people this year as a small business, you have the time to do this, build it out, and then test it with your candidates, and then be able to iterate, which is a huge thing in design thinking that I think a lot of companies are scared of, is testing, failing, doing better. So constantly looking at that process and seeing, does it work, does it not work? Let's tweak, let's enhance, let's scrap, just so that they know that they're going to have the best experience for those candidates, and it's going to help their business. And they can take that exact same journey map and do it to their customer. They can put it into their employee experience. So there's a lot of different ways to use that journey mapping and that service blueprint, not just within the hiring side of their business.
Yeah, I like that they can apply it to all the various entities, and especially with the current employees that they have, and building the culture and letting the people who are already there have a little more buy-in and self-discovery to give some feedback to the owner or the boss, the manager, whoever it may be, to allow some input on what matters to them. Because I know you talk a lot about empathy. So to me, empathy comes with being a true listener. So as a leader, they need to be open to that feedback and receptive to sometimes our perception of what we think we're giving our team members, and our intent, it may be good, but it's not being perceived that way. So can you talk a little bit about some of those hurdles that leaders sometimes run into with that?
I think a lot of leaders feel like they have to be perfect, that they have to be the role model. They can't do anything wrong. They can't fail. And with that kind of mindset, you really aren't open to discovery. You're not open to feedback or criticism. And so if you are able to enhance your empathy, which is something you can do. It's not something that you're just born with. I think there's definitely empaths out there. I feel like I am one of those. But I think that anyone can actually learn how to utilize empathy by having, doing different things. So within design thinking, there's this piece that IDEO uses, which I love, which is immersion in empathy, where you literally take different ways to immerse yourself in empathy. So it could be change your perspective. So, maybe a leader can go sit on the floor and do someone's job and see how those tools work, how the system works. Recognize when their employees are, wanting to take that fax or printer and throw it in the field and bang on it like the office. They actually can experience that and have those feelings and see within, the whole walk in someone's shoes mentality. So I think there's a lot of different ways that leaders can, take the time with either doing it themselves or putting themselves in their employee shoes. But the other thing that I think is really important is observation and interviewing your employees. So observation is that time where you kind of just sit back and just look and watch and listen. You don't talk, which is really hard for me. I love to talk, but you just sit there and you just watch them and you take notes and you get insights, and you might see them, do something different in the system, and you might want to know why. And it really kind of helps you learn about them, and it gives you notes that then you can interview them and give them that time to say, hey, this is a conversation on you and this and your role and how we can actually do a better job with the business, with our business goals, or with your professional goals. I observed you. These are things that I saw. Tell me more. What can I do as a better leader for you? Having those open dialogue conversations really will help leaders understand their employees. There's a lot of assumptions that happen every day in a business. And the thing that always shocks me being in HR is when someone leaves the organization and all of a sudden this whole group of people have a sigh of relief because that person was toxic, and the manager never knew. And it's like, oh my gosh, like every employee wants to slap that manager over the head and say, how did you not know? And it usually is because they're so focused on their job, so focused on their tasks, their to-dos, that they don't actually look up and pay attention to what's going on, within their team, and they may not listen. So yeah, I think what you said, listening is huge, but also taking the time to have conversations and build a relationship.
Yeah, because otherwise it's an endless cycle. And I think that's when I hear you talk about the journey map, there must be a point of review, right? And feedback loop. You have to do that. Otherwise, you're going to keep making the same mistakes. So in order to get off the wrong path and get on the right one to hiring and retaining, if you build this process for your clients, I imagine that it's pretty solid and also has some points of review and tweaking. And every year there must be some sort of let's look back and see what worked and what didn't work, to continue to build that culture. Can you talk a little bit about the triggers? Like when someone reaches out to you, what is their major, and maybe there's a top 3 of what makes them call you for help?
So top 3, I would say the first is that they are not hitting their hiring goals and initiatives for the business. Something's happening and they're not able to find the right people, they're not staying. So there's, this whole concern with, are they going to be able to hit their business goals for the year? So it's really, how can you help me strategize or find ways to maybe, be looking at the right candidates or finding that quality candidate, or just coming up with a game plan. We call it a talent acquisition strategy on, where can I, find these people? What tools should I be using? Another one is that they recognize that their process isn't working anymore. So they had a process, it worked for a while, and now it's not working. So I had a client who was using a pre-employment assessment that did not work anymore for their process. It was too long, it was too much information, and they couldn't actually read it without an industrial psychologist explaining it to them. So it just wasn't going to be a tool that they could scale with. And so they needed help finding a better tool. So that is another one. And I would say the third reason I get calls is actually because they want to find a new job, or they're wanting to network and understand kind of what I do, and then they see the benefit for their business or for their next business with talking to an experienced recruiter. Because I think a lot of times, unfortunately, recruiters get a bad rep. And once you find a good one, sometimes you just want to kind of hold on to them.
Very good. So what's next for you, Jodi?
What's next? So I have a couple of really cool initiatives right now I'm really, really excited about. So with the talent acquisition evolution, I have created this membership site called Influence Network, where I'm helping TA and recruiting professionals become thought leaders and influencers in our industry. And so I know we talked that I'm an author now, which I love, but I want other people to become authors. So within this group, we're actually going to create a multi-author book all about hiring. So I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm excited that we're really focused on the tri-state and the thought leaders that we have here. So that's one thing. I am kind of going your route, Rochelle, and I am creating my own little video interview series called the Happy Recruiting Show. So I'm really excited to bring experts from outside of the Cincinnati area into Cincinnati so that we can learn from them and understand kind of what they see our industry doing, especially with everything they talk about with future of work. And I'm really excited about working with my customers and my clients specifically with that journey map and that hiring blueprint. I really feel like this could be a game changer for them and something that they can continue to use. I call it a working document because it's never finished. You're always changing it. But if they have it in place, then they can start to tweak and test and see how they can really impact their hiring and their business goals.
Well, it sounds like you're definitely on your true north journey. Really appreciate having you today. And do you want to leave us with, if you were to give anybody advice on following their true north, what would you tell them?
That it's okay to try, fail, and try again, and that testing is the only way that you're truly going to find what you're passionate about and what you're really excited about as an entrepreneur. So it's okay that maybe your first business doesn't work out the way you want. Take that information and continue to move forward.
Excellent advice. Thanks, Jodi.
Thank you.